I understand that many people have very strong opinions and may disagree with my decision.
Before the gambling headlines, before the withdrawals, before the silence, there was one image golf fans could not stop smiling about. Phil Mickelson, arms thrown wide, walking off the 18th green as lefty. That gap-toothed grin, that reckless, go-for-broke swagger that made him the most beloved gambler in the history of a conservative sport. For 3 decades, he wasn't just a golfer. He was the people's champion, the man who chased flags instead of playing safe, who signed autographs until his hand cramped, who made the People's Open his personal white whale for over 20 years. But today, we set the green jackets aside. We are going to look beyond the highlight reels, because the deepest truth about Phil Mickelson is not written on a leaderboard. It is found in a $100 million gambling habit hidden in plain sight, a federal investigation into his stock trades, a career-defining alliance with a foreign regime that cost him nearly everything, and, as of this year, a series of serious, disputed allegations that have pulled him out of every major championship for the first time in his professional life. This is not a simple downfall story. It is the story of a man who spent 30 years being adored for taking risks in public, while the riskiest bets of his life were happening far from any golf course. San Diego, California, the early 1970s. A toddler stands on a patch of backyard grass, watching his father swing a golf club. Instead of copying the motion the way it's shown to him, he does something almost nobody does. He mirrors it exactly, like a reflection in a window. His father swings right-handed. The boy swings left. It isn't a deliberate choice so much as a toddler's instinct. Watch, copy, mirror. That accidental reversal becomes the signature that will define him for the rest of his life. The kid who does everything backward, on purpose, forever. Born June 16, 1970, Philip Alfred Mickelson grows up in a home that treats golf as a family language rather than a military discipline. There's no engineered chaos here, no coins jingling to build tolerance for pressure. Instead, there's a boy chasing the game with a joy that borders on recklessness, going for every green, taking every risk. Because why wouldn't you? By the time he's a teenager, he's already known as a prodigy with a dangerous streak. Brilliant shot-making paired with a total unwillingness to play it safe. At Arizona State University, that same fearless streak wins him NCAA individual championships. Then, in 1991, something happens that has almost no precedent in professional golf. While still an amateur, a college kid with zero pro status and zero pro paycheck, he wins the PGA Tour's Northern Telecom Open outright. Not an exhibition, not a mini-tour event, a real PGA Tour title as an amateur, a feat so rare it still gets mentioned every time a young player flirts with doing it again. The nickname Lefty sticks. So does something else. The sense that this kid plays like he has nothing to lose. Watch him through the 1990s and 2000s. He is racking up PGA Tour wins at a pace that should be producing majors. It isn't. Tournament after tournament, he arrives at Sundays in contention, and tournament after tournament, something goes wrong. Nowhere is this more brutal than the US Open. He finishes runner-up there an agonizing 6 times, a record no one wants to hold, earning him the sport's cruelest unofficial title, the best player in the world who's never won a major. Then, 2004, Augusta National. He finally breaks through, sinking a birdie putt on the 18th green to win the Masters, and the release is instant and physical. He leaps into the air, fist pumping, the weight of a decade of near misses visibly lifting off him in real time. It's the win that finally silences the best player never to win a major tag. He'll add 2 more green jackets in 2006 and 2010, along with the 2005 PGA Championship and the 2013 Open Championship at Muirfield. 6 majors in total, cementing him as one of the era's defining champions. But look closer at 2009. Just before that year's Open Championship at Turnberry, his wife Amy is diagnosed with breast cancer. Watch what he does. He withdraws from the tournament entirely, stepping away from the game at the peak of his career to be by her side during treatment. It's the first real crack in the fearless gambler image, proof that behind the reckless flag hunter was a man whose real priorities, when it mattered, were never actually about the trophy. The following year, 2010, brings his own diagnosis: psoriatic arthritis, a chronic inflammatory condition that can cause debilitating joint pain. He starts treatment and keeps playing, but the body behind the beloved public image is already quietly more fragile than the highlight reels let on. Then, in May 2021, comes the moment that redefines his entire legacy. At the PGA Championship at Kiawah Island, at 50 years old, he holds off the field to become the oldest major champion in golf history. The crowds surge around him on the final fairway, security struggling to hold them back, and he wades through them anyway, high-fiving strangers, grinning like the kid who won as an amateur 30 years earlier. It should have been the perfect final chapter. It wasn't. Fast forward to 2023. Author Alan Shipnuck publishes a biography that pulls back a curtain almost nobody outside Mickelson's inner circle had seen. According to the book, Mickelson had been gambling at a scale that dwarfed anything the public imagined, reportedly wagering enormous sums over decades, with total lifetime bets Mickelson himself would later acknowledge ran into the billions of dollars across his career. In a public statement, Mickelson admitted his gambling had reached what he called a reckless and irresponsible level, and said he was ashamed of the toll it had taken. Around the same period, a separate and far more serious thread surfaces. A federal investigation connects Mickelson to an insider trading case involving a Dean Foods stock trade in 2012, tied to notorious gambler Billy Walters. Mickelson was never criminally charged, but the SEC determined he'd profited from trading on non-public information, and he agreed to repay roughly $931,000 in gains, plus interest, to settle the matter. For 30 years, the public had watched him gamble openly on the golf course, missing greens and chasing flags for entertainment. They had no idea what kind of risk-taking was happening off it. Then, in 2022, comes the LIV Golf rupture. Mickelson is revealed, again through Shipnuck's reporting, to have privately described the Saudi-backed league's financial backers in vulgar, damning terms, while simultaneously explaining he was using the new league as leverage against the PGA Tour regardless. The comments detonate publicly. Watch what happens next. Sponsors that had stood by him for 2 decades, including KPMG and Workday, sever ties within days. The PGA Tour suspends him. The people's champion, built on decades of adoring galleries, becomes, almost overnight, one of the most polarizing figures in the sport. He disappears from public view for months, which brings us to this year. Watch the pattern unfold across 2026, one major at a time. In April, he withdraws from the Masters, his team citing a family health matter. In May, he withdraws from the PGA Championship at Aronimink for the same stated reason. In June, he's absent from the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills. The USGA declines to extend him a special invitation after his prior exemption lapses. Then, in late June, he pulls out of the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale, a tournament he'd been eligible for as a past champion. For the first time in his professional career, Phil Mickelson misses all 4 men's majors in a single year. It's important to be precise about what is documented fact here and what remains a disputed allegation, because the two have become tangled in headlines. Here is what has been reported, according to Golf Digest, and a subsequent investigation by Alan Shipnuck. Mickelson was reportedly asked to leave the Farms Golf Club in Rancho Santa Fe, his hometown club, following a complaint from a female club employee alleging non-consensual, inappropriate physical contact. Shipnuck's follow-up investigation, described as drawing on 19 sources, reportedly outlined a broader pattern of alleged inappropriate conduct going back more than a decade, including an account from Ashley Perez, at the time married to fellow tour player Pat Perez, describing an incident at a 2015 tournament dinner. Pat Perez has spoken publicly, on a 2022 podcast, about being deeply hurt by what he was told happened, saying at the time that Mickelson had crossed a line he considered unforgivable, though he acknowledged Mickelson had personally apologized to him. None of this has been tested in court, and Mickelson has not been criminally charged in connection with these allegations. Through his attorney, Mickelson's camp has firmly disputed the characterization of events, stating that any misunderstanding has been cleared up, that he is focused on a private family health matter, and that he has retained defamation counsel to pursue anyone trafficking in speculation or false rumors. As of this year, the matter remains unresolved and contested. Allegations on one side, a denial and legal pushback on the other. What is not in dispute is the visible outcome. A six-time major champion, once golf's most reliably present superstar, absent from every major championship of the year, his explanation to the public limited to a brief, repeated phrase, a family health matter, while the sports press corps openly debates what's actually happening behind it. Strip away the speculation, and here's the shape of what's verifiable. A man who built a 30-year public identity on visible risk-taking was, for much of that same period, privately taking risks the public never saw, in casinos, in stock trades, in relationships within his own sport. Some of those risks have already had confirmed, acknowledged consequences. The SEC settlement, the sponsor exodus, his own public admission about the scale of his gambling. Others, the 2026 allegations, remain genuinely open questions, actively disputed, with real reputational and legal stakes on both sides that no outside narrator can responsibly resolve for you. What connects all of it is the same instinct that made him beloved in the first place, the willingness to go for the flag instead of laying up, applied to far more than golf. For decades, that instinct produced fist-pumping majors and adoring galleries. It has also, by his own admission in the gambling case, produced real damage. Whether it explains anything about the unresolved 2026 allegations is not something the available facts currently answer. Picture him now, 56 years old, absent from a golf major for the first time in his career, his name trending for reasons that have nothing to do with a leaderboard. The kid who mirrored his father's swing because copying exactly wasn't interesting, who chased the flag instead of the fairway for 30 years is, for the first time, not the one controlling the story. Some of what happened to Phil Mickelson is fact, confirmed by his own words and a federal settlement. Some of it is a live, disputed allegation that a court, not a comment section, will eventually have to sort out. The honest answer to what happened to Phil Mickelson isn't a single shocking twist. It's a longer, messier story about a man whose public bravado and private life were never quite the same story, and a current chapter that isn't finished being written. What do you think actually happened? Let us know in the comments.